Great Scott! It is precisely October 21st, 2015! Sure, we don't have flying cars or hoverboards, but at least we have plutonium in every drugstore! Let's talk about the Muppets. And I'm not gonna talk at this voice. Back to the Future! Hello everyone, I'm Joshua Gillespie, and if you couldn't tell from that intro, I am so excited about Back to the Future today. It's my favorite film trilogy, it's my favorite movie, I love it. And today, October 21st, 2015, is the exact date that Marty McFly travels to in Back to the Future Part 2. Now, what on earth does this have to do with Muppets? Not much. However, because there wasn't a new episode of the Muppets this week, I decided, why not embrace Back to the Future Day and review something Muppety that also has to do with Back to the Future. And conveniently, there is something. The Season 3 finale of Muppet Babies called Back to the Nursery. Now, before I begin this review, I just want to point out that the episode quality is crap. Unfortunately, Muppet Babies has had a very limited home media release. Some VHS tapes here and there. In fact, I'm not entirely sure it's ever been released in any form on DVD. So the only way to watch most of these episodes is just what people have taped off of their televisions, which doesn't always mean the best quality, and that's the case here. So I apologize if it looks a little too bright in some areas. I really tried editing to make it look better, but it just never worked out. So I apologize in advance, but that's just what you have to go with sometimes. So, yeah. Now, Muppet Babies was known for parodying the famous movies of the time like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and, you know, just throughout the series using clips from other movies and TV shows and whatnot, even including clips from The Great Muppet Caper. So, how well do they tackle Back to the Future? Let's find out. While looking at Nanny's high school yearbook, Fozzie accidentally spills hot chocolate on one of the pictures. So, to make up for this, the Muppets plan to use a time machine to go back to the year 1955, of course, and try and retake the picture. However, they lose Animal in the time world, and they have to go and find him. Here's something I wanted to point out. The first time period they go to is the Old West. Now, Back to the Future 3 takes place in the Old West, 1885. The movie came out in 1990. This episode aired in 1987. Now, what's crazy is at the end of the episode with the go bye-bye, I love saying that, they go to the future. Gonzo says, you have to see what Miss Piggy does to me next week. So, it has the future, and it has the Old West, before either of the sequels came out. So, that's pretty crazy. So while it doesn't necessarily follow the story of Back to the Future, what did I like about this episode? I love the Back to the Future references throughout. Even though there aren't many, you know, they go to 1955, and they have the DeLorean, but that's about it. Though I do love how they recreated the DeLorean traveling through time. But Back to the Future isn't the only thing they reference in this episode. And I just gotta say, I love this joke.
Good luck. Don't park in a twilight zone.
Now every episode of Muppet Babies has a musical number. And the one in this episode is called Running Out of Time. And maybe it's just me, but it sounds so similar to Johnny Be Good. And, you know, that would make sense, because it's a Back to the Future episode. And maybe it's just me. You take a listen.
The clock keeps ticking both night and day. The seconds and the minutes just slipping away. Way down in Louisiana, down in New Orleans. Way back up in the woods of
let's hope I don't get any copyright strikes. I like the concept of this time world where different time periods are in different clocks, and if you want to go to a certain one, you just have to set the time correctly. It's a neat idea, but unfortunately, well, I'll get to that. And finally, I love the ending segment, the go bye-bye segment from this episode.
You're gonna want to see this too, aren't you?
Now, unfortunately, you're gonna have to find that video on YouTube separately because it's not in the episode that's... I'll just get to it. What didn't I like about this episode? Well, let me start with a little bit of a nitpick. When they open the DeLorean door, they use a lightsaber sound.
Wait a minute, I've got an idea.
I know it's silly to complain about that, but it's... My biggest problem, though, is the main story of them trying to find the place where Nanny worked just gets shoved to the side so quickly. I think if they had just cut out the whole it being a winter day just so they could explain why they're drinking hot chocolate, that could have been cut out. It's just so unimportant, and honestly it just makes the whole story seem so constricted, and then it gets the main story shoved to the side for this other one, but then they come back to the main story at the last second, and if I was a child growing up with this show and this was the season finale that I got, I would have been thoroughly disappointed. Possibly. If you're a Back to the Future fan, you're gonna like this episode just, you know, off the name alone. But other than the references here and there and the song and the time world, it's just, this episode, it really suffers from trying to tell two stories and it just not working. There's a way you can do it and a way you can't, and this is how you don't, because the whole main story just kind of goes away. Well. So, I say skip this episode, which sucks because I'm such a big Back to the Future fan. At least the movies are still amazing. And remember, your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one. I'm Joshua Gillespie, and thank you for watching.
Password.
Chocolate cupcake.
Enter.